These aren't just Washington quarters. They're five silent time capsules hiding in everyday change, minting errors, vanished varieties, and multi-million-dollar secrets that slipped through U.S. Mint hands and now trade for fortunes. From the elusive 1932 S to the mistake-struck double-die legends, these five rare Washington quarters can turn a single coin into a collector's payday. If you've ever held a quarter, you might already be holding history, worth far more than 25 cents. Before you spend your next quarter, stop, because hidden among ordinary pocket change are five Washington quarters so rare that collectors chase them like treasure hunters chasing lost gold. These coins carry minting flaws, low mintages, and secret varieties that slipped into circulation unnoticed. One lucky find can turn a simple 25-cent piece into hundreds, thousands, even tens of thousands of dollars. These aren't coins. They're jackpots hiding in plain sight. Imagine holding a small, silver-colored coin in your hand that silently tells the story of America's economic evolution, a coin that marked the end of silver in everyday change, a coin that witnessed one of the most dramatic shifts in United States, mint history. The 1965 Washington quarter may look ordinary to the untrained eye, but behind its shine lies a saga of crisis, innovation, and transformation. Today, we dive deep into the history, the mystery, and the legacy of the 1965 Washington quarter, a coin that changed American currency forever. So get ready to uncover the untold truth behind one of the most important transitions in U.S. coinage history. The story of the 1965 Washington quarter begins in the early 1960s, when America was facing an unprecedented silver crisis. For decades, U.S. dimes, quarters, and half dollars had been struck in 90% silver, a standard that had defined American coinage since the Coinage Act of 1792. However, by the early 1960s, the price of silver began to rise dramatically, threatening the stability of the nation's circulating coinage. People began hoarding coins, melting them for their silver content, and speculating that silver money would soon disappear from circulation. The United States Mint faced a crisis as the demand for coins surged, but the supply of silver could no longer keep pace. In 1964, Congress and the Treasury Department took immediate action under President Lyndon B. Johnson's administration. The nation was running out of silver, and something had to be done to prevent a full-blown monetary disruption. The president authorized the mint to begin researching a new metal composition for circulating coins, one that would preserve the look and feel of silver but without using the precious metal itself. This would mark a revolutionary change in the history of U.S. coinage. The mint's metallurgists and engineers worked tirelessly to develop a new composition that could mimic silver's appearance but be more affordable, durable, and sustainable. After months of testing and refining, they settled on a clad composition using a pure copper core sandwiched between two layers of copper-nickel alloy. This gave the coin a silvery appearance while maintaining the electromagnetic signature needed for vending machines and coin sorters. The Coinage Act of 1965 was passed on July 23rd of that year, officially authorizing the change in composition and marking the end of silver coinage for the Washington quarter. The new copper-nickel clad quarter would weigh 5.67 grams instead of the previous 6.25 grams, and it would consist of 75% copper and 25% nickel bonded to a pure copper core. This act not only altered the metal content of coins, but also suspended mint marks for several years to discourage hoarding and speculation. That's why you won't find mint marks on quarters. Dated 1965 through 1967. Whether they were minted in Philadelphia, Denver, or San Francisco, they all carried no mint mark, the Washington quarters. Design, however, remained unchanged. The familiar profile of George Washington, sculpted by John Flanagan in 1932, continued to grace the obverse, and the proud heraldic eagle remained on the reverse. But while the design stayed the same, the soul of the coin had transformed forever. The 1965 Washington quarter became the first non-silver quarter to circulate in the United States, a true turning point in modern American numismatic history. Collectors at the time were skeptical. Many disliked the sci-fi, duller appearance and lighter weight of the new clad coins. Others lamented the end of silver as the death of traditional coinage. Yet in the long run, the decision proved critical to maintaining a stable economy. The new quarters began entering circulation in late 1965 and quickly became the norm as silver quarters were hoarded out of use. By 1966, nearly all silver quarters had vanished from daily transactions, and the clad coins had taken their place seamlessly. Interestingly, the mint continued to strike 1964 dated silver quarters into 1965 while ramping up production of the new clad version. This overlap has led to endless confusion among collectors, but also created one of the most fascinating chapters in coin production history. It is estimated that over 8 billion 1965 dated quarters were struck, a massive output intended to meet the overwhelming coin shortage that plagued the economy during those years. The mint even operated around the clock, with presses running 24 hours a day to meet the demand. One of the most intriguing aspects of the 1965 Washington quarters story is the existence of transitional errors. During this period, some silver planchets left over from 1964 accidentally got fed into the presses and struck with 1965 dies, creating a small number of genuine 1965 silver quarters. These are among the rarest modern errors in U.S. coinage history and can be worth thousands of dollars depending on condition and conformation of their silver composition. Numismatists test these coins by weight and sound. Genuine silver 1965 quarters weigh slightly more and produce a distinctive ring when dropped on a hard surface, while clad quarters produce a duller thud as the years passed. The 1965 Washington quarter became not just a piece of pocket change, but a symbol of adaptation and survival. It marked America's shift from traditional precious metal coinage to a modern economy based on durable base metals. It demonstrated how a nation could evolve its currency without losing public confidence. It also paved the way for future innovations like the 50-state quarters program launched in 1999 and the America the Beautiful quarters that followed decades later. From a design standpoint, the coin retained all the classic beauty of Flanagan's original portrait of Washington, but its production process became far more complex. The clad blanks had to be carefully bonded under immense pressure to ensure proper adhesion between layers. Any separation or delamination could cause defective coins, leading to strict new quality control procedures at all minting facilities. This modernization of the minting process would set new standards for decades to come. Today, collectors view the 1965 Washington quarter as a pivotal coin, the first of a new generation. It holds no silver content, yet carries tremendous historical value, especially in high-grade, uncirculated, or proof-like conditions. Mint sets from this era are highly sought after, and finding a flawless 1965 quarter free from contact marks or tarnish can be challenging due to the high-speed production of the time. Even though billions were made true, gems are rare. What makes the 1965 quarter even more fascinating is that it captures a moment in American history when innovation triumphed over scarcity, when practical necessity reshaped tradition, and when a single coin quietly redefined an entire monetary system. Every time you hold a 1965 quarter, you are literally touching the beginning of modern American coinage. The Washington Quarter series would continue for decades, retaining its iconic portrait and eagle reverse until 1998, before the state quarters program began. But none of those coins have the same revolutionary significance as the 1965 issue. It wasn't just another coin, it was the dawn of a new age in U.S. minting technology, from the laboratories of the Philadelphia Mint to the chambers of Congress, from the hands of metallurgists to the pockets of ordinary Americans. The 1965 Washington Quarter tells the story of transition and resilience. It represents the moment America's money stopped depending on silver and started depending on science and efficiency. The sound of those first clad quarters clinking together in 1965 was more than just a new tone in the nation's currency, it was the sound of change itself. So the next time you find a 1965 Washington Quarter in your collection or in an old drawer, remember, it is not just a piece of metal, it is the echo of a turning point, the legacy of a nation adapting to economic reality, and the foundation for every quarter that followed. All right, listen carefully, because what I'm about to tell you will make you look at the 1988 Washington Quarter. Like never before, imagine holding a simple 25-cent coin in your hand, one that passed through the pockets of millions across America, one that was tossed in toll booths, jingled in vending machines, and used in daily life without a second thought. But behind that ordinary silver-colored coin lies a fascinating story of design evolution, American pride, minting precision, and a hidden legacy that connects to the very soul of U.S. coinage today. We travel back to 1988, a year when the Washington quarter was more than just spare change. It was a reflection of America in transition, a coin that stood between eras carrying the weight of over 5 decades of tradition, while unknowingly preparing to give way to the most revolutionary change in U.S. quarter history just over a decade later now. Before we dive into the details, let's understand what makes the Washington quarter such an iconic piece. Since its introduction in 1932 to honor the 200th birthday of the first U.S. President, George Washington, this coin has represented strength, leadership, and unity. But the 1988 Washington quarter carries a special identity. Minted near the end of the copper nickel-clad era, before the massive state quarters boom that began in 1999, it stands as the last of the quiet years, a time when the coin looked simple, but held stories of transition, technological change, and economic significance. The 1988 Washington quarter was minted in 3 locations: Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco. The Philadelphia mint coins carry no mint mark, while the Denver coins proudly bear a D, and the San Francisco mint produced the proof. Versions with an S mark the Philadelphia and Denver mints struck hundreds of millions that year, but the proofs from San Francisco tell a different tale. These proofs weren't meant for circulation. They were crafted with precision and care for collectors, with a mirror-like finish and razor-sharp details that revealed every contour of Washington's portrait. The obverse of the 1988 quarter continued the classic design by sculptor John Flanagan. His depiction of George Washington was based on a bust by Jean-Antoine Houdon and became one of the most enduring designs in American coinage. Washington face is left with the word liberty arched above and the phrase, "In God we trust." Placed to his left, the date 1988 sits below his neck. It's simple, direct, and elegant. Now the reverse side shows the majestic American eagle with its wings spread wide, clutching arrows in its talons, symbolizing readiness for defense, with olive branches beneath to represent peace. E pluribus unum, meaning out of many one floats above, and United States of America curves around the top. The design is timeless and powerful, a perfect balance of strength and serenity. But the deeper story of the 1988 Washington quarter lies in its composition and minting process, made of an outer layer of 75% copper and 25% nickel bonded to a pure copper core. This composition was first introduced in 1965, after the removal of silver from circulating coins. The change was driven by the Coinage Act of 1965, when silver prices were rising and the government could no longer afford to mint coins with real silver. By 1988, the copper nickel-clad quarter was already a mainstay in everyday commerce, durable, resistant to wear, and easy to produce. It had become the standard of modern American coinage. The technology of coin production in 1988 was far more advanced than the early decades of the Washington quarter. High-speed presses, capable of striking hundreds of coins per minute, were now in operation, each die engraved with precision, using computer-guided equipment and modernized metal planchets, ensured consistent thickness and composition. Yet despite all this progress, errors and varieties still occurred, and these are what make the 1988 quarters particularly fascinating for collectors. Some 1988 quarters show weak strikes, where the details of Washington's hair or the eagle's feathers are not fully formed. Others show doubled dies, minor off-center strikes, or planchet defects. These imperfections give us a glimpse into the human and mechanical side of coin production, turning ordinary coins into rare collectible treasures. The 1988 Washington quarter also sits at an important cultural crossroad. America was changing rapidly. The Cold War was winding down. Technology was advancing, and society was preparing for a new digital age. But coins like this one remained physical symbols of national unity, tangible pieces of history that passed through generations. They reminded people of the founding father whose face they bore, and of the strength and endurance of the American spirit that continued to push forward. By the late 1980s, the U.S. Mint was already planning for something big, the redesign of the Washington quarter to celebrate the state starting in 1999, but in 1988, none of that was public knowledge at that time. The Washington quarter looked the same as it had for decades, steady and familiar. But beneath that surface, the foundations of a revolution were forming new minting technologies. New collector interest and new design philosophies were on the horizon. So when you look at a 1988 Washington quarter today, you're looking at the calm before the storm, the final phase of an era before the most popular coin series in American history took over in terms of value. The 1988 Washington quarter remains common in circulation, but certain examples hold premium value for collectors, especially those in pristine mint state condition or with proof-like surfaces. Coins graded MS67 or higher are rare and command strong prices at auctions. The proof coins from San Francisco with deep cameo finishes are also highly sought after for their beauty and craftsmanship. And when you factor in mint, errors like double dies or off-center strikes, the value can increase dramatically, making this coin a small but powerful piece of numismatic history. But let's not forget what makes this coin truly remarkable. It's not just about value. It's about the story. It tells every 1988 quarter has journeyed through the hands of countless people. It's witnessed the rise of new technologies, political changes, and the transformation of daily life. It's been a part of millions of lives, often unnoticed, yet always present, and that's what gives it soul. A coin isn't just metal, it's memory, it's history, frozen in copper and nickel. So, as we continue through this deep exploration of the 1988 Washington quarter, we'll uncover how this small piece of metal connects past and future, how it embodies America's resilience, and how it remains one of the most underappreciated yet significant coins of the late 20th century. The 1988 Washington quarter isn't just change, it's a chapter in the story of a nation, a symbol of endurance and a quiet reminder that even the most ordinary things can hold extraordinary meaning. And as we move forward in this journey through design, legacy, production, and cultural impact, you'll come to see why this coin deserves a special place in the heart of every collector and every lover of American history. Because in the end, the 1988 Washington quarter is not just a coin. It's a story struck in metal and time, and that story begins right here. Imagine holding in your hand a piece of American history struck in the heart of a turbulent decade, a small shining coin that survived the chaos of the 1960s, a simple 25-cent piece that tells the story of a nation in transformation. This is the story of the 1967 Washington quarter, a coin born from Change Rebellion and the reshaping of the United States Mint. A coin that carries secrets of silver shortages, public frustration, design, evolution, and the bold new age of modern coinage. Welcome to a deep journey through the creation, legacy, and mysteries behind one of the most fascinating quarters in U.S. history, the 1967 Washington quarter. Now close your eyes and picture the America of 1967. The Vietnam War rages, the space race drives scientific ambition, cultural revolutions erupt across the nation, and amid all that tension, the United States Mint faces its own crisis. The end of silver in coinage had just reshaped the face of American money, and the Washington quarter found itself at the center of this transformation. To understand the 1967 Washington quarter, we must first travel back to 1932, the year the Washington quarter was first minted in honor of George Washington's 200th birthday, designed by sculptor John Flanagan. It replaced the Standing Liberty quarter and instantly became a symbol of tradition, respect, and national pride for decades. The Washington quarter was made of 90% silver and 10% copper, representing both value and trust. But by the early 1960s, everything was changing. Silver prices were rising, the U.S. Treasury faced massive shortages, and people began hoarding coins, especially silver quarters. And dimes. By 1964, the mint was struggling to produce enough coins to keep up with national demand. Coin hoarding had turned into a national crisis. Vending machines, banks, and stores all ran short of change. President Lyndon B. Johnson stepped in with a radical plan, the removal of silver from dimes and quarters, and a reduction in the silver content of half dollars. This marked the birth of the clad coinage era. The United States Mint began producing copper nickel-clad coins in 1965, but the public reaction was intense. Collectors protested, fearing the end of an era, and for 3 years, the Mint decided to remove mint marks from all coins, including the 1967 Washington quarter. This decision was made to discourage hoarding, since mint marks like D for Denver or S for San Francisco made certain coins more collectible. From 1965 to 1967, All quarters bore no mint mark. No matter where they were made, this made the 1967 quarter unique in American coinage history, as one of the few years where all coins came without identifying marks of their origin. Yet behind that simplicity lay an incredible industrial effort. Millions of coins were being produced at multiple mints across the country, but none bore a clue as to where they were born. The 1967 Washington quarter was composed of outer layers of 75% copper and 25% nickel bonded to a pure copper core, giving it that distinctive silvery appearance, but no precious metal value. This new composition was a technological leap forward, as it allowed for massive production and durability, yet also represented a symbolic departure from America's silver past. The design remained that of John Flanagan's portrait of George Washington, with the word Liberty above his head, and the motto, "In God We Trust," to his left, the date, 1967, proudly below his bust. On the reverse, the majestic bald eagle with wings spread held arrows and olive branches representing both war and peace. The coin's edge was reeded as in previous issues, but the metallic color and tone were distinct from the warm shine of silver. Coins' production numbers were enormous. The Philadelphia Mint struck over 1.5 billion quarters in 1967, an unprecedented figure aimed at flooding the market to end coin shortages. These were coins meant for circulation, not collection, and for the first time since the early days of the mint, there were no proof coins made. For collectors instead, the mint introduced a new type of collector product called the Special Mint Set, or SMS. These coins were struck with greater care than regular circulation strikes, but not as polished or mirrored as proofs. The 1967 SMS quarters are highly sought after today, especially those with strong details and brilliant luster, and among them are hidden some mysterious varieties that have kept collectors fascinated for decades. One such variety is the so-called double-die obverse 1967 quarter, where the doubling of letters or numbers creates a ghost-like image visible under magnification. Another prized specimen is the SMS 1967 quarter with a cameo or deep cameo finish. These have a frosted portrait and mirror-like background, giving them a striking appearance. The rarity of high-grade SMS coins in PR67 or PR68 condition makes them especially valuable to serious collectors. Some of these coins can fetch hundreds, even thousands of dollars depending on strike and surface. Quality yet beyond varieties and minting techniques, the story of the 1967 quarter is deeply tied to America's evolving economy. By this time, inflation had begun to erode the value of money, and coin collecting was booming. Newspapers and television featured stories about rare coins. People searched their change, hoping to find treasures among the new copper-nickel coins. It was a time when numismatics became a national hobby. The 1967 quarter sat right at the intersection between old and new, between silver heritage and modern manufacturing, between artistry and practicality. The United States Mint continued to experiment during these years, testing new presses, new dyes, and new polishing techniques to make coins more efficient to strike. The 1967 issues benefited from these innovations, resulting in sharper relief and better die life. But the removal of mint marks created confusion and curiosity. Many Americans wondered why the symbols disappeared. It became part of a larger cultural moment where trust in government was being questioned, and even small things like mint marks seemed symbolic of the era's secrecy and change. As time passed, the 1967 Washington quarter became more than just change in your pocket. It became a historical marker of the transition from silver to clad coinage, from tradition to modernization, from scarcity to abundance. It represents the mint's resilience in overcoming technical and economic challenges, and its commitment to ensuring that every American had the coins they needed for daily life. Today, the 1967 quarter remains one of the most widely recognized coins among collectors, not for its rarity, but for its story. It is a piece of American resilience, a product of innovation and adaptation, and a reminder that even the smallest objects can carry immense historical weight, whether you find one in circulation or own an SMS example with that satin-like sheen. You're holding the spirit of a nation during one of its most transformative decades. The 1967 Washington quarter is not just a coin, it is a monument in miniature, a reflection of the era that changed America forever. Have you ever held a coin in your hand and wondered what stories it carries from the past, what moments of history it witnessed before finding its way into your pocket today? Well, Well, the 1998 Washington Quarter is not just a piece of change, it is the last breath of an era, the final chapter of a design that defined American coinage for more than 6 decades before the state quarters revolution changed everything forever. This coin stands at the very edge of numismatic history, bridging the classic and the modern world of American currency today. We dive deep into the fascinating story of the 1998 Washington Quarter, exploring its creation, its design secrets, its minting process, its hidden errors and varieties, and the reasons why collectors around the world see it as a symbolic farewell to one of the most iconic coin designs in the United States history. So get ready as we uncover every secret detail of this incredible coin, from the minting floors to the collector's vaults. This is the untold history of the 1998 Washington Quarter. The story of the 1998 Washington Quarter begins not just in that year, but more than 60 years earlier in 1932, when the United States Mint introduced a new design to honor the bicentennial of George Washington's birth. Sculptor John Flanagan's portrait of Washington was chosen over several competing designs, and from that moment the Washington Quarter became an American icon. It remained unchanged for decades through wars, economic transformations, and cultural shifts. The quarter became a constant in the American hand, a symbol of everyday trust and stability. But by the late 1990s, the winds of change were blowing through the U.S. Mint. In 1998, America stood on the brink of a new millennium. The Mint was preparing to launch the most ambitious coin program in its history, the 50-state quarters program, which would begin in 1999 and completely transform the look and meaning of quarters for years to come. That meant that the 1998 Washington Quarter would be the final issue of the traditional eagle reverse design used since 1932. It was the end of an era. This gave the coin a quiet but powerful significance because it symbolized the last moment before change. The 1998 quarter was minted at 3 primary locations: Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco. The coins struck at Philadelphia carried no mint mark. The Denver coins bore the familiar D mark, and the San Francisco issues featured the S mark, reserved for proof coins intended for collectors rather than circulation in total. The mintage for 1998 was remarkably high, with hundreds of millions of coins produced across the country. Yet despite the massive numbers, it is not quantity that gives this coin its importance. It is what it represents: a closing chapter of American coinage tradition. The obverse design still displayed John Flanagan's portrait of George Washington, modeled from Jean-Antoine Houdon's famous sculpture from 1785. It is a calm, noble, and classical representation, showing Washington's strength and humility. Beneath his image was the word liberty to the left, the phrase, "In God we trust," and to the right, the year 1998, and the mint mark, if present. This familiar arrangement had remained largely untouched since the coin's debut and served as a bridge between the America of the 1930s and that of the late 1990s. The reverse of the coin was equally symbolic: an eagle with outstretched wings perched upon a bundle of arrows and olive branches, representing both readiness for defense and the desire for peace. This design reflected America's values and posture through most of the 20th century. It was a time when the quarter was not just currency, but a small daily token of national identity. When the 1998 quarter rolled off the presses, it did so during a period of transition in minting technology. The U.S. Mint had begun to modernize its production systems, improving die quality and strike consistency. Yet minor variations and errors still occurred, and these are what intrigue collectors today. Some 1998 quarters display doubled die errors, slight misalignments, or weak strikes that make them stand out from regular issues. There are even reports of transitional planchet errors where coins were accidentally struck on experimental metal compositions being tested for the upcoming state quarters program. These rare mistakes can turn an ordinary quarter into a valuable collector's treasure. Proof versions struck at the San Francisco Mint are especially admired. These coins were minted using polished dies and planchets, resulting in mirror-like surfaces and frosted designs. The 1998 S-Proof quarter came in both clad and 90% silver versions, with the silver issues being sold in collector proof sets. The contrast between the deeply mirrored fields and the frosted devices on these proofs gives them a level of beauty unmatched by circulation coins. They are the Mint's final farewell to the classic Washington Eagle quarter before a new era began. Collectors often view the 1998 Washington quarter as a turning point coin. It marks the end of simplicity and the beginning of modern commemorative coinage the following year. The 1999 Delaware State Quarter would debut and completely change the way Americans saw the coins in their hands. Each state would soon have its own story on a quarter, but before that could happen, the 1998 issue quietly closed the curtain on a 6-decade legacy. The value of a 1998 quarter depends greatly on its type, and condition-circulated examples are common and generally worth face value, but uncirculated mint state coins graded by professional services like PCGS or NGC can carry premiums, especially those with exceptional luster or striking detail. Mint State 67 or higher examples can fetch impressive prices among registry set collectors. The silver-proof versions, particularly those still sealed in their original mint packaging, also hold strong value due to their silver content and their status as the last silver proof of the classic design. The story of the 1998 Washington quarter also includes its cultural footprint. This was a coin that millions of Americans use daily. In vending machines, phone booths, laundromats, and parking meters, it was the last quarter generation before digital payments started to take over. It connects us to a simpler time when pocket change carried the pulse of the nation. Every 1998 quarter that still circulates today is a tiny relic of that past, a bridge between the analog and digital ages. Behind the design, there is also the story of John Flanagan himself, the sculptor whose design graced the quarter for so long faced early criticism. When it was first chosen, some believed Laura Gardner Fraser's version was superior, yet history proved Flanagan's design to be timeless. It survived countless debates over redesigns and modernization, and by 1998, it had become inseparable from the American identity. Flanagan's Washington is dignified, not dramatic calm, not boastful, reflecting the spirit of leadership that carried the United States through the Great Depression, World War II, and the Cold War. As we move deeper into the historical timeline, we see how the Washington quarter evolved. The metal composition changed over time from the original 90% silver to the copper-nickel-clad composition introduced in 1965. Due to rising silver prices, the 1998 quarter, therefore, belongs to the modern clad era. Yet it retains the exact same design style as the silver versions, giving it an aesthetic continuity that stretches back over 60 years. The feel, weight, and ring of the coin remind us of its long lineage for coin. Collectors, the 1998 quarter often serves as a gateway to understanding the broader history of U.S. numismatics. It teaches about mint marks, production techniques, composition shifts, and the artistic legacy behind the coins in our hands. It also holds emotional significance as the last of its kind before the radical design change of 1999, when each state began to tell its own story. Through coinage, the 1998 issue is the final full year of uniformity before the explosion of diversity that came. After, when you look closely at a 1998 quarter, you are not just seeing metal, you are seeing the final moment of a shared design language that connected generations from grandparents to grandchildren. Everyone in America had held that same portrait of Washington and the same eagle on the reverse by 1999. That unity was gone, replaced by 50 new designs, each celebrating individuality and state pride. But the 1998 coin remained as the last echo of the old America in coin form. Today, collectors and historians alike see the 1998 Washington quarter as a sentimental keepsake. It may not be rare in number, but it is unique in meaning. It captures the calm before change, the last breath of the 20th century coinage design philosophy. It symbolizes constancy in a time when everything was about to evolve. From the moment the first dies struck metal at the mints in 1998 to the day the last one was released into circulation, every coin carried a silent farewell message to the design that had served the nation faithfully for decades. The Washington quarter's eagle spread its wings one last time before giving way to the colorful stories of the state quarters. And in that transition lies its timeless charm. The 1998 Washington quarter stands as a reminder that even the most ordinary objects can mark extraordinary turning points in history. It is more than just a coin. It is the closing line of a chapter that began in 1932. It tells us how art, technology, and national identity merge in something so small yet so powerful.